Hello, everybody. Tommy Long here. On another segment of Tommy Time, today's topic is going to be on unusual shapes with build out. I got questioned earlier this week how to get around poles. I get on wheels or something like that at the top of a porch that you're going to use, so it increases the outdoor space that the homeowner is looking for. It's very, very difficult to start because you could run through a bunch of metal before you get the right angles. So I always keep my scraps. And what we're going to do is I have one back here in the back corner that we're actually going to, and hold on, I'm going to zoom in on this. Let me see if I can figure this new remote out. Okay, perfect. We're going to track slightly over. Actually, let me AI it. There we go. Hopefully everybody can hear me and see me. So what we're going to talk about is I keep all my scrap. So first off, what I do is I will take a piece. Now this one I had the angle on it, but I would hold it up on the back side of the opening, use a pencil, draw the angle. That way you can cut it and get your small piece to make sure that it fits first in the opening. Zoom in a see if I can get more on myself out of frame. Oops. New remote control with this AI camera is kind of fun. All right, so what I did was I used a grinder to cut this because you cannot get this much of an angle out of a chop saw safely. So I actually cut this to make sure it fits in here first. And then what I did was where this hits, I drew a line up here on the top underneath to know where the next piece needs to start to go up. Now the whole idea is you have to know how you're going to be putting the metal into these openings to be able to, because if you're using 2x2 build out, which is what we tend to build these in with, is a piece of 2x2, you've got to know how this is going to slide in and stuff like that to make it fit real well. The one that the installer called me about was a railroad. It's like a 189-inch opening, but it was only 3 foot tall in the center. So he was trying to do it in one piece. And I explained that it might be better to split this up, build this first, and then build the other ones up to it to make it easier to slide the pieces into it during the whole process. So what I did was I did this one first, and then I took another piece, and this particular one has both sides. One side's trimmed, the other side's not. So what I did was I held it up just like it was going to be fitting inside of here, and I drew a pencil mark on it, and then I cut it, and then I fit it to make sure that we get the angle correct. So see, this is going to be a nice fill-in spot right here. And I did the same thing also. Track the camera back. The same thing when I was doing this one here is I did the same thing. I cut this to fit up in here to know what my angles were going to be first before I start cutting a bunch of metal. That way you don't waste it. And then I drew lines on where this is going to stop. So you can take an inch off of it. I'm trying to show you an easy tip. So what I did was I drew a pencil line at the bottom so then I can measure from here to the other side to know what that measurement is. Now I did that and I wrote them down on the bottom of the opening to where you're going to be covering it up anyway, so no one will see that once you go to attach all of your pieces. So now I have my angle for up here at the top. I have my angle up here, and this is just going to be flat at the bottom. And then my other piece will actually go up against it and run across. Now I have this piece. I'll just have to figure out what the angle is going to be up at the top where this piece and this piece meet each other. So as you can see, I don't like the overlap look. I've heard guys that say, well, just overlap it instead of worrying about the angles. To me, it looks kind of tacky. And if the homeowner gets up there and looks, they've spent a bunch of money having this completely screened in. And trying to fit that 2x2 into both of these pieces when they're overlapped, it's not real easy to do that as well. Then what I did was I took this and I lined it up with what it's going to be and drew a pencil line. So this is what the angle would be up against this. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this piece in first. It goes here. Then I'm going to put the bottom piece in because that has an extreme angle on it, and then slide this one in and fasten it to the structure. Now the thing you're going to run into is when you get down on the bottom edge, you're not going to be as easy to get a drill in here. What I use is I use a right angle driver that's kind of long, and that way I can pre-drill my hole before, because more than likely this is going to be a wood surround out of cedar or something like that. And if it is, it's going to be easy to pre-drill and just run a wood screw up into this. Now, if you have small gaps back here in this corner, a lot of times what you can do is a small bead of caulk, because if you're putting a very, very dark fabric in here, the smallest little spots are going to show like a beam of light going into the room because they're trying to enclose the patio. A little bead of caulk right here will fill in any of those gaps, and it'll help make sure they don't get any daylight in. The bugs are going to happen whether they roll the shades up or shades down at any time. So what you just want to do, and you do the same thing with your metal, your 2x2. Cut pieces first to see how they're going to fit in here, but then you have to realize, okay, I've got this big piece that I've got to slide in and slide over. Then I need to put this big piece in all the way up. Now, you have an inch of receiving channel that you can slide your 2x2 into. So you've got a little bit of leeway you can move, it in or out if you need to. Where the angles are going to meet right here, it's going to be, as you can see here, you're going to have this much room down in this corner where you've got to fit two 2x2s. That's 4 inches. There's not 4 inches here. So one of them you might have to cut long. The other one you might have to cut short to make them fit. But you have to figure out which one you want to put in first. So you know which ones to cut. And then if you're cutting on that. Don't worry about the angle down here. But also, if you get a really, really unusual one, it's really big, split it here. Sorry, let me go back to that. Now this is just a 4 foot, it's probably 42 inches triangle. But if you get one that's even bigger than that, split it in the middle here. So now all you're doing is worrying about building this first and then building that. So that way you're not worrying about these weird angles down here trying to slide a 2x2 in. You slide all this in, you slide your 2x2 upright in to split it, and that way you can push all this in and fill in any gaps you might have. The other thing also that kind of helps, whoops. Uh-oh. It's not tracking correctly. Come on. All right, there we go. The other thing you just have to take into consideration, realize that all of the strength is in the metal. It is not in the fabric. So by all means, make sure your structure is good and strong, because when you roll that fabric into it, that fabric is going to be based on the structure that you build it up against. So screen room guys are going to say all the time, you can't roll Suntex fabric in. You can't roll Twitchell into it. Yes, you can. They don't like it because they're so used to doing very, very thin fiberglass cores, fabrics that are thin, easy to roll in. The thicker, for the porches that we're doing these days for these outdoor living spaces where they might want to use patio heaters, AC units, fireplaces, things like that to create an outdoor living space, they want it to hold in the air conditioning or heat. You need to put the more dense fabrics in it, and it can be done. I've done it for years. A lot of the screen room guys have finally started accepting it because they're getting more of those jobs where, the patio guy that does the shades doesn't do the fixed panel stuff. So they work together, and that means he has to put in the same fabric that the shade is so it matches. You have to also take into consideration lines in fabric as well. So if your shade is next to it or below it, don't run your lines crossways if there's patterns in the fabric and your shades are running up and down. It's going to throw off the look. And also, if you're rolling a 97 or 99%, make sure you have the weave pattern going the exact same way as the shades, because it helps not take away from the look of the patio when you've got the weave of a 97 running this way and then the shades run in the opposite way. It's just one of those things to take in consideration. I hope this helps everybody. Let me know if you have any questions. Just leave them in the comments below, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Thank you all, and you all have a great day.